Representing the government this morning, Kit Malthouse is with us now. It's always great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. How is the Queen's speech going to help people who are struggling with the cost of living, Minister?
Well, you'll have to allow me, Kay, to avoid a reprimand by the Speaker by not previewing what's going to be in the humble address, as they say. Prince Charles obviously will be delivering it later, so we don't have long to wait. But we are very focused on some of the themes that you've been talking about this morning. First of all, obviously growing the economy. As the Prime Minister said, I think yesterday, while we are putting significant government spending behind assisting people through this really challenging period of price inflation, we have to bear in mind that we can't spend our way out of this problem. We have to grow the economy. And so looking toward growth will be key. The second theme I think you'll start to see is about keeping our streets safe. Obviously, my primary job in life is to make sure that you and everybody else in the country can sleep safely at night and go about their business in safety too. The third area we'll be looking at funding the NHS, COVID backlogs, making sure that we can get ahead of that, as well as showing some of the benefits, if you like, of Brexit in the legislation that's brought through. It's worth just saying, though, Kay, as far as the cost of living crisis is concerned, it is incredibly challenging for people out there at the moment. Obviously, legislation takes some time to put in place. It has to go through both houses, can often be many months, sometimes over a year before it hits the statute book. But I do know that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor are in constant conversation about how we can be agile in assisting people through this challenging time.
Does that mean that we're looking at an emergency budget?
Well, I don't know. You'd have to get the Chancellor on and talk to him about that. But I think he said in the media yesterday that he is constantly reviewing what he can do to assist. Now, we're obviously in a time of very volatile fuel prices. They are moving around a lot. We need to see a little more, I think he said yesterday, about where that fuel price is going to go before we design what may come forward. But look, we're very focused on trying to give people as much help as we can. As you know, we've put £22 billion now of overall assistance into helping people, whether it's through their fuel bills or through the Community Hardship Fund, now expanded to £1 billion, focused on the very those who are suffering the most in this awful crisis. But at the same time, our key objective is to get as many people as possible into work, and having a thriving, growing economy that provides the employment they need, using universal credit to stimulate and help them into work, we think is the best solution for families across the country.
Doesn't sound as though you're ruling it out.
Well, we don't rule anything in or anything out. I'm afraid you're asking me questions above my pay grade, Kay.
Well, you're representing the government this morning, Minister.
No, I am. But as I say, you have to get them on. I do know that they are looking very, very carefully, almost every day, at how people are struggling with their prices of food and fuel and the choices that they're having to make. And I know that they're giving it careful thought about what the next step should be.
What's your prediction for inflation by the end of the year?
Well, I'm a government minister, so I can't make a personal prediction to you. But obviously, we look with alarm at the predictions that the Bank of England have made just in the last week or so of inflation peaking towards the end of the year. And we'll have to think carefully about what our response to that might be. Obviously, the bank is taking the measures it needs to do by raising interest rates to start to restrict that money supply, to kind of dampen things down a little bit so that inflation doesn't get out of control. And I sincerely hope that that works.
How concerned are we that inflation might get out of control? I recognise the fact that you said alarmed as part of your last answer.
Well, obviously, any rise in inflation above what we've been used to, which is at or around the 2% mark, is a cause for concern. The bank is indicating that we'll peak and then fall away, which we all have to work towards. That includes them in monetary policy and the Chancellor in fiscal policy. But look, okay, in amongst the inflationary problems that we're experiencing at the moment, we do have to focus on the fact that the post-COVID economy needs to grow. And so stimulating capital to invest in businesses, looking at how we can turn all those brilliant ideas that come fizzing out of the British people on an almost daily basis into businesses which can become world-beating, at the same time as making sure that as many people as possible can access high-wage, high-skilled jobs, giving them the tools they need through training and skills, which Nadeem is doing with great aplomb, so that they can access those jobs too. That's about our future economy, and that's where we need to go.
I note with interest a couple of years ago, we were just looking at that in the office this morning, about August 2020, Prime Minister said there will be no border down the Irish Sea over my dead body, is what he said. That's exactly what we've got, isn't it? So what's the government going to do about it?
So we're obviously in close discussion with the EU about the operation of the Northern Ireland Protocol. I think it's worth remembering that as we reached the late stage of 2019, the House of Commons had effectively pulled the rug from under the Prime Minister by taking no deal off the table. And that meant that we went into the Brexit deal, if you like, the arrangements to leave, in the hope that everybody would be flexible around the Northern Ireland Protocol. Sadly, we haven't seen that very legalistic approach from the EU. But I know that the Foreign Secretary is in constant conversation with the EU and their negotiator about how we can make that protocol work for the whole of Northern Ireland. Obviously, there is great distress on the Union side. I don't think there's any party that went into the recent elections not asking for change in the operation of the protocol. I think that needs to be recognised by the EU, and hopefully we'll see some flexibility in the months to come.
And does flexibility also potentially include scrapping it?
Well, look, I can't predict what's going to happen. Again, that's a matter for the Foreign Secretary. But obviously, Article 16 that sits in the protocol is there for a reason. But I know that what we fervently want to do is to reinforce the Belfast Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement, maintain the if you like, the settlement in Ireland as a whole, but make sure that people in Northern Ireland feel that their rights as part of the United Kingdom are being respected and prioritised. And I know that the Foreign Secretary will be looking at that very seriously over the weeks to come.
Yeah, but the majority in Northern Ireland voted for parties supporting the Northern Ireland Protocol, so it would be inappropriate to scrap it, wouldn't it?
I don't think that's right, Kay. I think all parties who are standing in the election wanted changes in the operation of the protocol. And obviously, I think most votes went to a variety of parties who supported a unionist position. So, we need to bear in mind that we've got twin objectives, really. First of all, the Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, and that integrity of the United Kingdom has to be preserved. But we also want to honour our commitment to the Good Friday Agreement. We think we can do that with some flexibility around the operation of the protocol. And I know that the Foreign Secretary will be talking to the EU chief negotiator intensively over the weeks to come, particularly as we try and get that executive back up and running to try and achieve that.
Is the Prime Minister going to be directly involved in brokering a deal for the power sharing, fixing the power sharing in Northern Ireland, because it's a mess?
Well, look, in the past, as you know, Prime Ministers have taken a leading role in Northern Ireland negotiations. I would imagine he's done the same. He did as much, if you remember, in the negotiations with the Irish government leading up to Brexit. So he stays very close to his Northern Ireland Secretary, and I know that they talk a lot about the negotiations, and if required, I'm sure he will.
Is it going to need the Prime Minister to get involved? Because it is, as I said, a mess at the moment. What is the time frame for trying to fix it?
Well, we obviously want to fix it as soon as possible, because it's clear that business in Northern Ireland particularly is not doing well out of the protocol, and that needs to change. And I know the Foreign Secretary is, as I say, in intensive conversations, as is the Northern Ireland Secretary, and the Prime Minister will be as involved as he needs to be to try and deal with any deadlock should it arise. It's a very delicate situation at the moment. We recognise that, and it requires everybody to get around the table and to be flexible, if you like, in their approach to make sure that we preserve that settlement, that agreed settlement through the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland.
Is that a direct appeal to the DUP?
Not necessarily, no. I'm just saying I'm being realistic about the situation in which we find ourselves. As I say, we want to engage with the EU, with the Irish government, with the DUP to make sure that we reach an arrangement that is satisfactory to everybody.
OK, let's talk about beer with Keir, should we? We heard from Keir Starmer saying, I believe in honour, integrity and the principle that those who make the laws should follow them. That's a direct dig at the Prime Minister, isn't it?
Possibly, I don't know. You'd have to ask him. Look, I'm staying out of this one. As Policing Minister, it would be inappropriate for me and unwise to comment on a situation where there's an ongoing police investigation. I haven't in other situations that have been similar, and I certainly won't in this. I've never been, I have to say, particularly censorious about other MPs' conduct. How he conducts himself is a matter for Keir Starmer.
If he's fine, should he resign?
Again, you'd have to ask him
asking you,
whether
sir.
he should or shouldn't. That's down to him. He set his own parameters for operation in the past. As I say, I've never been censorious about the way other MPs conduct themselves. Try not to give advice to other people, other elected politicians, other than to say it's unwise for anybody to comment on an ongoing police investigation.
He says he's going to go. He says if he's fined, he will have to go. He feels that that would be the appropriate thing to do. As a result, however, you can dodge it if you like, but the Prime Minister will also have to go if the Leader of the Opposition resigns for the same thing.
Well, I'm not sure that's the case, Kay, but you're trying to draw me into something that I really don't want to be drawn in. You have to recognise that as Policing Minister, I really should not comment on a situation where there's an ongoing police investigation. We need to leave the police space and time to do their job with their usual commitment and exactitude, and I'm sure in this situation they will do as they have in others.
Well, given that you're Policing Minister, how much pressure do you think Durham Police are under now?
Well, Durham Police will operate professionally to the high standards that we expect of them, irrespective of what the external goings-on are around this case. But as I say, we need to leave them the space and time to do that job. I'm sure they will, and they'll reach their conclusion in due course. I don't know, Kay, if you wanted to cover some of the public order stuff that we've got out today.
OK, I'm happy to talk about what I'd like to talk about, if that's OK, Minister.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. As far as Durham Police are concerned, if we do find that there's a case to answer against Keir Starmer, without question, they are going to have to find themselves in something of a pickle unless they, again, look at Dominic Cummings and what happened in April of 2020, aren't they, as Policing Minister?
Well, Kay, as Policing Minister, I need to be very careful that I'm not seen to be influencing who the police do and don't pursue. That is not my job. My job is to set the priorities nationally for the police, and that includes looking at murder, serious violence, rape and sexual assault, neighbourhood crime like burglary, robbery, car crime, which are happily down quite significantly now. And so I very much do the what. I certainly don't do the how, and I would not dare to step across the line and talk about specific individuals.
No, but would it not be reasonable to assume that if there was a high-profile case that was being looked at where someone was found guilty of breaking the law of the land and there was a similar breaking of the law of the land potentially, then you would expect our police service that you are Minister for at the moment to look into, at least consider that?
Look, as I say, I'm not. Kay, you're trying to draw me into making a comment on ongoing investigations or prospective investigations. I really don't want to. I know
whether
that
it would be reasonable to expect that, Minister.
Well, I know Twitter's going to go mad that I'm avoiding the question, but I really do have to respect the operational independence of the police and allow them space and time to do their job as they see fit. That is what we vest in them. That is what we trust them to do. I trust them to do things professionally every single day, and I really don't want to get into that debate, if you don't mind. I understand it's of public interest, but particularly in my position as Policing Minister, it just wouldn't be proper, I'm afraid.
But you do acknowledge it is of public interest?
Well, obviously, the whole situation is of public interest. It's certainly of interest to the news media. But as I say, I really can't comment.
OK. Good to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time to join us on the programme this morning. Thank you.